Ho 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 world! So Christmas is approaching, and I thought it might be a fun little thing to do to just go through a few ideas for Christmas gifts. So if you have a friend or family member who doesn't know what to get you for Christmas, maybe send them this video and it might give them a few ideas. Okay, so first off on the list is actually going to be a sort of a trio of items because they're all kind of linked together, and that's to do with patch cables. So obviously a modular synth without patch cables is nothing at all. You can never have too many patch cables. They're kind of like the socks of the modular synth gift world. They come in all kinds of sizes, colours. You can get some that light up, etc. Just be sure that if somebody is buying you some patch cables for Christmas, make sure that they get the right size, the 3.5mm end, not the 6.3mm end. Okay, related to that then, there's a few different methods that I have of sort of keeping the patch cables tidy. So one is this little hanger here, which you can hang your cables off like this, and you can put all different cables in there, keep them tidy. Now I only just bought this recently and haven't really used it yet, as you can see, but yeah, I'm going to get something to hang this on so I can keep my cables nice and tidy, and then they're also quite easy to get to as well. What I also have, which is quite useful, are these little pressed hood leather ties, I guess they are. So these are quite useful for keeping a bunch of cables together, and it's a little bit nicer, a little bit more plush than the standard Velcro thing. Just having a nice little leather version there. Okay, next on the list is a tuner. So I have this small tuner from it's a Korg tuner. It's a chromatic tuner. It's probably meant for tuning guitars or whatever. But I just find it's really useful to have this. Now, obviously, you can get tuners within modules in your rack, and I probably have got a couple of modules in there that have tuners built in. But actually it's just nicer having that sort of bigger screen that you've got on this tuner here, and also not having to take up space within the rack. So tuner is essential, I would say, and very useful and not too expensive, so that's another potential gift there. Okay, another item which I've found very useful over the years that I've been doing modular synth is an oscilloscope. So this is just a small little portable handheld one. It's a DS212. It was quite cheap. Bought it off eBay. Yeah, so you've got two inputs here. The cables, I kind of had to sort of doctor a couple of patch cables with the cables that were provided with it to get it to work, but that's okay. And again, yeah, having an oscilloscope is a very useful thing when you are working with modular. And yeah, you can get oscilloscopes within the rack, but again, it's something else that it's nice to have on a slightly bigger screen, and it's nice to not have to take up space within your rack. So oscilloscope's really useful to sort of sometimes visually see what's going on with a signal, especially when you're sort of trying to problem solve or something isn't working the way that you expect it to. You can just check out the signal with an oscilloscope and see what's going on. And it's also a great learning tool as well, so sometimes visually seeing what's happening to a particular signal is a little bit easier than listening for it. So an oscilloscope is a great purchase there as a gift. What else have we got on the list? Okay, now I've mentioned this a number of times on the channel, but I, as you probably know if you're a regular viewer, always advocate making considerable notes about what you're doing with your patches in a notebook. So notebooks make great gifts, I always think, at Christmas time. So if there is somebody looking to buy you something and they're not sure what to get, maybe a notebook is the thing that could be a nice little stocking present there. Another very useful item to have when you are working with modular is a timer. So this timer is currently timing this video, so that I know how long I've been talking for. But I will use this timer with my patches, so I know where I am within a patch, when things need to change, how long I've been making a particular sound for, or whatever. Having a timer is a really, really useful way of not sort of getting too lost within what you're doing, especially during a performance. You can get timers very cheaply, again off eBay. It makes a great little sort of stocking present. And obviously you can have timers on your phone, but for some reason I don't seem to manage to sort of work that well with ones on my phone. I like having something that's a little bit more physical and external to my phone, that will just sort of sit there in my line of sight on the front of the modular. Right, 10 minutes in. Okay, better keep going. Right, so those gifts there are the more, I guess you might say, sort of stocking filler presents, not so expensive. The next few items are probably going to be a little bit more expensive. And I'm going to start off with something that maybe isn't that obvious, and you might say is not necessarily related to modular, but it is a comfy chair. You will be spending many, many hours sat in front of your modular, and having a chair that will help you and have a nice posture and so on is really essential. So if there is somebody out there that's looking to spend a little bit more money on you for Christmas, then perhaps getting a really nice comfy chair is the way to go. The chair that I'm sat in now, I bought it a few years ago. It's actually an IKEA chair. It's not super expensive, but it is quite comfortable. It's a fairly basic chair, but it suits me. I can sit in this chair reasonably well with a not too bad posture, and it's quite comfy. I don't need to put lots and lots of cushions on. I can sit in this chair for a while and I'm still feel comfortable. So having a good chair is definitely something that is essential, I would say. Okay, another item which I own, and again it sort of sits a little bit outside of the modular, and that is a sampler. So I have a Roland SP404. I use that really for sort of creating ambiences and sounds that I want to play when I'm working live, in between tracks if I have to repatch or something like that. It's a really great way of bringing in some additional sounds into a performance that are not necessarily part of the modular. So I'm thinking things like sort of field recording type sounds, which I can then trigger from the various pads. I can, if I want to, play those and process those through the modular as audio, but sometimes I will literally just have those playing as a sort of a background ambience in between tracks or in between patches. So obviously it's quite an expensive sampler, and it does quite a lot of things. But there are lots and lots of examples of samplers that are a little bit cheaper, and so if it is somebody who's looking to spend a little bit more money on you this Christmas, maybe the sampler is the way to go. And sort of following on from that, as I mentioned, I like to use sort of field recording type sounds with the sampler. So how do you get those sounds in the first place? Well, with a field recorder. Now I can't show you my field recorder at the moment because it's currently recording the audio for this video, but it's just a small Tascam handheld field recorder, and I find that is a really useful piece of kit. I like getting out into the outdoors and recording sounds, whether that's nature or towns or whatever. And that field recorder is really, really useful. It's also useful because I'm using it now to record the audio for this video. I have used it in the past as well to record the audio from my synth when I've been out and about with the synth, and I can just plug straight into there and record that for for later on. So yeah, some kind of field recorder, some kind of handheld recorder. Again, a slightly more expensive item, but definitely very useful. Okay, the next item on my list is some kind of drum machine. So I have a drum brute, which I've had for many, many years, since way before I got into modular, but it has sort of come along with the modular journey. It's one of the sort of few pieces of equipment that I've kept hold of over the years, because it actually is still quite useful with my modular. It's got a load of outputs on there for all the different drum sounds. It's great for creating sort of extra triggers. It's got a brilliant sequencer in there, so you've got an additional little sort of trigger sequencer as well. And what I sort of like to do with it at the moment is to patch that through the T600 and have that process the drum sounds as well. So not only do I use it for triggering things, but I can also use it just to create drum beats, which I'm kind of processing through the T600, or even maybe through the modular as well. And that just adds a little bit of variety. And to be honest, it's a little bit easier, I think, than creating drums in the modular. I don't have any drum modules at the moment, so that might be something that I'll look into in the future. But having that drum machine there, a self-contained unit that sort of sits outside of the modular, is actually really, really useful. I have thought about changing it a couple of times, and I would be quite interested to maybe get hold of something like the DFAM, or the Behringer version of that, which is the Edge, because that might be sort of more integratable into the modular. But whether I do or I don't do that, it doesn't really matter. That I still will keep hold of that, because actually it's still really useful. It's quite a good sounding drum machine. So yeah, whatever drum machine you fancy, doesn't really matter. But I do recommend getting some kind of drum machine to augment what you're doing with your modular. Okay, so that's just a few different ideas there for Christmas gifts this year, ranging from the very cheap to the slightly less cheap, more expensive. I will put some links below to some of the items, and of course, if there is anybody out there that is looking for the perfect gift for you, then please share this video with them. It might give them some ideas. And as ever, if you have enjoyed this video, then please hit the like button, and if you would like to see more of these videos, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Merry Christmas. Cheerio.